It is February 12th and I'm behind on reading my TBR Spin books. So I was behind on reading my December book, so I had to finish that before I could watch the January prompt. I watched the January prompt, but it was late in the month and I didn't start my January book, which is The Sleeping Car Porter by Suzette Mayer, until almost February, basically February. And I've been reading it ever since like the beginning of February, and I'm only about halfway through. What am I talking about? What is the TBR Spin? The TBR Spin is a super fun TBR busting game that you can play. It is put on by Jill at The Book Bully and Sarah at Freshly Read Books. Every year we pick 12 books at the start of the year, and then each month one or the other of the hosts spin a wheel which has prompts on it. Those prompts, whatever prompt it lands on, leads us to pick a book off our stack. A lot of times you'll have to swap out a book because you don't have a book that fits that prompt, or sometimes the spin will tell you to swap out a book on your stack. But either way, you're always putting more books from your TBR back on your stack, so it always works out. The first spin of 2024, which is the second year that they've been doing it, they did at the end of December, and it was a live show. It was super fun, and the prompt for that was to read a Canadian book, which could have been a book by a Canadian author, a book set in Canada, a book about Canada. I chose The Sleeping Car Porter, which is set in Canada and is by a Canadian author, Suzette Mayer. So this book also won the Giller Prize, which is a Canadian prize, and I've had this one on my want to read list since I think it was on the, was it on the Booker Prize? It was on another prize list. It was like long listed but not shortlisted for that prize, and I'd been wanting to read it. I found this copy at a Goodwill, so lucky. Very easily could pick this for a Canadian book for the January prompt of 2024. But I didn't get to it because, like I said, I had a lot of things going on and things I had to finish. I vlog every book that I read for the TBR Spin, and at the end of those vlogs, I pick the next book. So I don't watch the prompt for the next month until I finish my book. I still haven't watched February's prompt even though we're midway through February. Baxter is a sleeping car porter in 1929. He works on the train. He takes train rides back and forth, taking care of the passengers on the train in his sleeping car. So he helps them onto the car, gets their luggage ready, shines their shoes, makes sure that their berths get changed from seating to bedding at night, changed back during the day, make sure that all the accommodations that the majority white passengers need, they have through him. And of course, this is a very difficult life. It's a very not well paid job, a very difficult job because you have to stay up all hours, you have to be on the beck and call of the passengers, and obviously at this time Black men are still considered like second-rate citizens, and they're still often discriminated against and abused in day-to-day life. Baxter is trying to make enough money to go to dental school. He really wants to be a dentist. I'm not quite sure why. He is struggling just to make enough money from his job and from the additional tips that he gets to have the tuition to go to school. But he's hoping that if he can do a few more runs, some longer runs that might make him more tips, he can get going to dental school. It's all following Baxter as he goes on several trips. We see him in the beginning on one trip, and then the majority of the book is on another trip. It's about his day-to-day activity. It's about his thoughts and feelings. It's about his remembrance of things that's past, and it's also about his thinking towards the future. One of the things that he does a lot of times, especially to distract himself from the attitudes of some of the customers, is like think about their mouths and think about what's wrong with their teeth. It's done in a very stream of consciousness way. There's no speech marks, although there are indentations and dashes when people are talking. So you definitely know when people are talking, but there's no quotation marks for talking, which I know some people really hate. That doesn't bother me. I do think that the stream of consciousness nature of the book and the way that we're constantly flitting between different thoughts is a little bit off-putting, and so it's taking me, not off-putting is the wrong word. It's not that I'm off-put by it. It's just sometimes the minutia of the thoughts that Baxter is having and the processes of what he is doing is tedious, and so I think it's a little bit difficult to read in big chunks. So I've been reading it in small chunks, like 10, 12 pages at a time. There's a lot of like paragraph breaks. There's short chapters. So, I mean, not that they're numbered chapters, but they are like chapters. So it's easy to read a few of those at a time and then stop. There's always a place where you can stop. While we are learning about Baxter, we are also learning that he definitely does have hallucinations. He definitely does see things and people that are not on the train. And sometimes because of this, we're not really sure if he's dreaming, if he's awake, if this is happening because he's exhausted from no sleep and not a lot of food. He's trying to conserve his money so he doesn't often get food on his trips. He'll try to make his food last as long as possible so he doesn't have to pay extra. And of course, the whole system is set up so that the porters are always in debt to the train. They're never making enough. They have to keep working constantly just to be able to have any kind of income, because a big portion of their income goes to food that they eat, goes to lodging that they need between different train runs, and if any like linen goes missing or if passengers have any complaints, sometimes that's taken out of their checks. So one of the things that Baxter is in constant worry about is getting demerits, because if you have a certain amount of demerits, you're going to get fired, and he really needs to just keep this job until he can enroll in his dental school. I do like it. I am interested in it. Baxter is an interesting character. He's queer, so he's also struggling, and we're learning about his history, having sex with different men, and how that comes about, and how that's one of the things that he's like most frightened about. People learning about him and therefore being punished for that in his job or through passengers. He had a friend, I can't remember his name, who he talks about a lot, who was like his mentor as a porter, and we don't quite know if they had had a romantic relationship as well or a sexual relationship, but it's interesting, and it's kind of always dangled in front of us, this relationship that he had, whatever it may be, with this person. Baxter is trying to find out what happened to him, why he's not a porter anymore, and why he doesn't see him. So he's asking a lot of people, and he's trying to find that out. And we're also meeting all the different people on the train. So he is currently on this long run, multiple day, multiple night run. And so he has to deal with the same people in his sleeping car. And so we're finding little bits out about their lives. And currently there's a little girl who recently lost her mother, and her grandmother is taking her to her father. And that little girl has become enamored of Baxter, which is nice. The way that this little girl treats him is not racially motivated, and she likes him, but we kind of fear for Baxter that if anything were to happen, or if his manner was deemed inappropriate, or his attention to this little girl was deemed inappropriate, it could have really dire consequences for him. So there's a lot of things like that, and there's some other things that have come up as well that we're worried for Baxter, that if he gets found out or if his actions get misinterpreted, he's definitely going to get in trouble. And what kind of trouble a black man in 1929 can get into, it can go from bad to worse. So it's definitely a fear kind of looming over the book. I do like it. I definitely plan on finishing it. I don't foresee myself finishing it anytime soon. It's not the kind of book, I don't think, that is going to take off and I'm going to rush through till the end. I think the entire story is going to be written in the same way that's taken me so long to read it. But that's fine. I am enjoying it. Some days I take a break from it. Some days I keep reading it. But it means that I probably won't be watching the February prompt for quite a while. When I read some more of The Sleeping Car Porter, I will get back to you and let you know more of my thoughts. Okay, hi. Lighting in here is quite terrible. It is getting dark, but I have finally finished The Sleeping Car Porter. I actually finished this a few days ago, and it took me a really long time to read. I was reading it for like over 20 days, which is very, very long for me to be reading a book. But I did really end up enjoying it. Mild spoilers, so I will turn the book around for the spoiler part, and if you don't want to hear these very mild spoilers, then when I turn the book back around, skip to that. So very, very mild spoilers. Nothing bad happened in this book. Nothing bad happened. So like there was definitely the potential for things to be bad for Baxter, our main character. There was definitely potential for there to be issues with other people on the train and various things, and nothing bad happened, which is such a surprise to me, and it's something that I have talked about before, but now I'm so overexposed to death, destruction, horror, rape, murder in the media, in real life, and also in our books. Every book seemingly has to have some kind of sexual assault or horrible, tragic, terrible thing happen to one or another person. I'm reading a book now where like it was very obvious there was going to be like a huge section of the book that was going to have to do with child molestation. You know, like everything has to do with this horrible undercurrent of sensationalism and drama that people see all the time in real life, but they still want in their books. And like, I'm cool. I don't really want all that stuff in my books. Obviously, if you're reading a thriller like the other book I mentioned is, there's going to be horror moments or thrilling moments or moments of violence or, you know, moments where bad things happen. But I expect it in every single book now, and it really affects sometimes my enjoyment of a book because I am dreading that moment where violence happens, where terror happens, where abuse happens. And I was super pleasantly surprised that in The Sleeping Car Porter, it didn't get to that point. That being said, there was a lot of tension in this book, and the tension in this book was something I think, along with the writing style and along with the stream of consciousness style of narrative that this was, that definitely kept me reading this at a very slow pace. But I did enjoy the writing style. I do like stream of consciousness. This I just found to be very slow, very much I can only read 10 to 20 pages at a time kind of book before either my mind is wandering and I'm not paying attention, or I'm losing interest in the story, or I am feeling a dreadful feeling that something bad is going to happen, so I want to kind of move on. But I'm glad that I liked it enough to continue it, and I think it was a really interesting story and had some interesting details and interesting ideas in it. I think overall it was just really interestingly done. I should find another synonym for interesting, because interesting is not the right word. I wouldn't say that this was overly compelling. I wouldn't say that this was gripping, but I really enjoyed learning more about these characters and especially about Baxter, and I did enjoy that we didn't learn every single thing. Not every single thing was explained, and not every single thing was outright talked about. Some of the stream of consciousness aspects of this book, it was unclear whether that was Baxter's state of mind, whether it was something that he is subject to, you know what I mean? So it was, without giving it away, it was nice that we didn't get every answer at the end of this book. So I'm super happy to have read it. I read this for the Canadian book prompt, which was January's prompt in the TBR Spin. It hasn't been that long for you because you're watching this on a video, but it's so long for me that I have to remind myself a little bit. So I pulled up the February prompt. I have not watched the February prompt yet, and I'm excited to do so. So very happy to have finished the first TBR Spin book 2024, ready to move on to the next TBR Spin book 2024. Speaking of which, we still have such a big TBR Spin pile. Let's go over what's on my TBR Spin. How to Love a Jamaican by Alexic McArthurs. The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joan He. Sorrowland by River Solomon. Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. The Dead Take the A Train by Cassandra Caw and Richard Kadri. The Stationery Shop by Marjan Kamali. The Spirit of Science Fiction by Roberto Bolaño. Build Your House Around My Body by Violet Coopersmith. Split Tooth by Tanya Tagaq. The Office of Historic Corrections by Daniel Evans. And A Lot by Brian Washington. So let's watch the video and see what the spin has for us. The prompt for February is a book that makes you feel like you are outside in the sun. I feel like this year the prompts are much more experiential based, or I guess the last prompt in 2023 was like this too. Out of the last 3 prompts, they've been less cut and dry and a little bit more like experiential, based on your experience, your feelings, your thoughts. So a book that makes you feel like you're outside in the sun. This is a tough one. None of my books are particularly sunny. Hold on, maybe. So definitely not Split Tooth. This seems very cold and not like cold sunny. Although it could be, I guess. Not Sorrowland. That is like mushrooms and hands and sorrow. Her Body and Other Parties is like inside your body feeling. The Dead Take the A Train is like you're underground in a train. The Stationery Shop could be because it has these flowers, and I believe this takes place in Iran, which I think of as being a fairly sunny place, although I have no idea. I've never been there. But because the background is so dark, and because I know that this book makes everyone cry, that's not really, definitely not Build Your House Around My Body. I would say no to the Office of Historical Corrections because it makes me think of an office and it makes me think of being inside in the dark. Lot, maybe, because this is kind of like outside in the summer, I would think on the cover. Setting off the fire hydrant to play in the summer. Lot, though, I mean, it could be like a vacant lot. It could be like a lot outside that you play in. So it's like maybe. Spirit of Science Fiction could be a maybe. It has like a person with an upturned face, like they're looking at the sun. Science fiction to me seems like sunny and futuristic. The Ones We're Meant to Find is all about climate change and climate disaster and an island, I believe, so that could be sunny. But I feel like it's too cloudy on the cover and there's too much like muted shadows as opposed to like strong shadows or strong sun. So we'll say no to that one. Definitely How to Love a Jamaican is a possibility. It's a very sunny, bright, flowery cover. Jamaica makes me think of sunny places. So I think these are the 3. I specifically picked a bunch of short story collections for this spin, and I have not read a short story collection yet. So it kind of makes me think I'm not going to go with this one. This one also could be snow. So I think it's between these 2. And I think I'm going to go with Lot. This might be an easy out for me. This might be a little bit of a easy choice. I mean, who knows? Maybe not. It might not be easy to read once I get into it. But I have read Memorial by Brian Washington, and I did enjoy that. It was a pretty quick read, although not a light and sunny read, certainly. This one I think is pretty short. Yeah, it's under 250 pages. I think the cover with like kind of the rainbow in the water display does make me feel like I'm outside in the sun a little bit more than some of the other ones, although this one is very, very close. I have been wanting to read more Brian Washington since reading Memorial. The font is enormous in this. It's like almost like large print font. So I think this will be a good, fairly easy one to read after The Sleeping Car Porter, and I'm going to choose this one. But let's make sure to watch the end of Jill's video just to determine if there's any curveballs or anything that has been thrown our way that might change that choice. Okay, so no curveballs, everything's all good. I am going to be reading a lot in our next TBR Spin vlog. Let me know what you'd like to see in some of these vlogs. I've just kind of been putting extra footage that I have of things that I've been doing, but let me know if you think you'd like me to theme it more around the book or what I think the book is going to be about. Let me know if you'd like to see specific things in my life or get a better explanation or understanding of things that are going on in these vlogs. Let me know if you're participating in the spin. And if you are, what did you get for February? I know February's almost over, or might be over by the time you see this vlog, actually, because it's going up so late. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.